Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam namaskritya naranjaiva narottamam devim sarasatim vyasam tato jayamudirayet nastaprayeshu badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki Tata rajastamo bhava kama lobha dayaschaye chetayetayarana vidam sitvam sattve prasidati. Reading from Śhrīmad-Bhāgavatam, 4th canto, the process of creation, text number 1. Sutta uvacha Vayasakeriti vachas Vayasakeriti vachas Tattva-nischayam-atmanaha Tattva-nischayam-atmanaha Upadharya-matim Krishne Upadharya-matim Krishne Autareya satim vyadhat Autareya satim vyadhat Sutta uvacha Vayasakeriti vachas Tattva-nischayam-atmanaha Upadharya-matim Krishne Autareya satim vyadhat. Vayasakeriti vachas Tattva-nischayam-atmanaha Upadharya-matim Krishne Autareya satim vyadhat. Sutta uvacha Vayasakeriti vachas Tattva-nischayam-atmanaha Upadharya-matim Krishne Sutta uvacha Vayasakeriti vachas Tattvam-nischayam-atmanaha Upadharya-matim Krishne Autareya satim vyadhat. Sutta uvacha Vayasakeriti vachas Tattva-nischayam-atmanaha Upadharya-matim Krishne Autareya satim vyadhat. Sutta uvacha Vayasakeriti vachas Tattva-nischayam-atmanaha Upadharya-matim Krishne Autareya satim vyadhat. Sutta uvacha Sutta Goswami said, Vayasakehe of Shukadeva Goswami iti thus vachaha speeches tattva-nischayam that which verifies the truth atmanaha in the self upadharya just having realized matim concentration of the mind Krishna unto Lord Krishna Autareyaha the son of Uttara Satim chaste Vyadhat applied. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Sutta Goswami said, Maharaj Parikshit, the son of Uttara, after hearing the speeches of Shukadeva Goswami, which were all about the truth of the self, applied his concentration faithfully upon Lord Krishna. Purport. The word satim is very significant. This means existing and chaste, and both imports are perfectly applicable in the case of Maharaj Parikshit. The whole Vedic adventure is to draw one's attention entirely onto the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, without any diversion, as instructed in the Bhagavad Gita, 15th chapter, text number 15. Fortunately, Maharaj Parikshit had already been attracted to the Lord from the very beginning of his body, in the womb of his mother. In the womb of his mother, he was struck by the Brahmastra atomic bomb released by Ashwatthama. But by the grace of the Lord, he was saved from being burned by the fiery weapon. And since the king continuously concentrated his mind upon Lord Krishna, which made him perfectly chaste in devotional service, so by natural sequence, he was a chaste devotee of the Lord. And when he further heard from Srila Shukadeva Goswami that one should worship the Lord only and no one else, even though full of all desires or desireless, his natural affection for Krishna was strengthened. We have already discussed these topics. To become a pure devotee of Lord Krishna, two things are very much essential. Namely, having a chance to be born in the family of a devotee and having the blessings of a bona fide spiritual master. By the grace of Lord Krishna, Parikshit Maharaj had both opportunities. He was born in a family of such devotees as the Pandavas. And just to continue the dynasty of the Pandavas and show them special favor, the Lord specifically saved Maharaj Parikshit, who later on, by the arrangement of the Lord, was cursed by the boy of a Brahmana, and was able to get the association of such a spiritual master as Shukadeva Goswami. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said that a fortunate person, by the mercy of the spiritual master and Lord Krishna, achieves the path of devotional service. This was perfectly applicable in the case of Maharaj Parikshit. By way of being born in a family of devotees, he automatically came in touch with Krishna. And after being so contacted, he constantly remembered him. Consequently, Lord Krishna gave the king a further chance for development in devotional service by introducing him to Shukadeva Goswami, a stalwart devotee of the Lord with perfect knowledge in self-realization. And by hearing from bona fide spiritual master, he was perfectly able to concentrate his chaste mind further upon Lord Krishna, as a matter of course. Sutuvacha vayasakeritivacha statvanishchayamatmanaha upadharyamatim krishne autareya satim yadat. Suta Goswami said, Maharaj Parikshit, the son of Uttara, after hearing the speeches of Shukadeva Goswami, which were all about the truth of the self, applied his concentration faithfully upon Lord Krishna. Om Ajnanatimarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Gadamhayam Dadhati Svapadantikam Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Giradhar Shiva Sari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripadam Aham Vande Sri Guru Dinotaranam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanyeshwaram Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. So the blessings of all the Vaishnavas. Hare Krishna. We're very fortunate to be here at the lotus feet of Shri Radha Govinda, Srimad Mahaprabhu, Srila Prabhupada, and the assembled Vaishnavas. We're starting a new chapter here in the second canto, the process of creation. Atra Sarga Visargascha. It is explained that all the 10 topics are present in any of the significant Puranas, and so here in a similar way, this process of creation is being described. But before that happens, we're introduced to the setting in which this discussion took place. As we've heard previously, there's a narration inside the narration inside the narration. It's like one of these magic boxes that you open up and you see how, yeah, the matrushka, how far you can get inside to the essence of things, or the original source from which everything emanated. Om Purnamadak Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. So there's a lot of nectar here in this verse. Without further ado, we will get into the topic, which is introducing to us the main protagonists of this narration, which are Maharaj Parikshit and Shukadeva Goswami. So Sutta is describing the setting that he had witnessed while he was present in this discourse. So Parikshit Maharaj is the son of Uttara, and as such, he is very fortunate because he is born in a family of great devotees. He's in the lineage of the Pandavas. He is the heir of the dynasty. His father, Abhimanyu, had been killed in the battle of Kurukshetra, but his grandfather was Arjuna, so he's directly linked to the Pandavas. So he's considered a very close associate of the Lord, because the Pandavas, they're always in tune, in touch with Krishna. That's their only meditation. Where is Krishna now? What is Krishna doing now? And how can we please Krishna? So the narration is being given that in the first canto of the Bhagavatam, how Krishna saved him in the womb when he was attacked unfairly by the Brahmastra of Asvatthama. And Krishna, there's two versions of the story. One version is that his body burned and Krishna gave him a new body. The other version is that Krishna circled his body in the womb with his club, and he fought off the heat and the destructive influence of the Brahmastra. So, and he is very fortunate in many ways as the descendant of the Pandavas, as the student of Shukadeva Goswami. And here, the main topics that are being described is one, satim means being chaste, and the other topic is already been slightly touched upon, being born in a family of great devotees and receiving the mercy of a spiritual master. So all these three factors apply to the persona of Maharaj Parikshit. Now usually when we hear about chastity, it is in regards to the behavior of women. But here it is in regards to the behavior of Maharaj Parikshit, who was very chaste because his mind never deviated from Krishna's lotus feet. It is explained even when he was a young boy, he was so absorbed in Krishna and Krishna's pastimes that oftentimes he would seem to be uninterested in play or in food or in other types of activities, because he was so much absorbed in Krishna consciousness. In fact, his name Parikshit, the examiner, signifies a person who is always on the lookout. He's examining, where is Krishna? That is his focus, that is his meditation, because he wanted to again meet that person that he had seen in the womb of his mother, Uttara. So chastity also means fidelity, to be truthful or loyal, and for us this is a very important quality as aspiring followers and students of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada in this ISKCON movement, because we can see that chastity is very much an essential requirement in order to make spiritual progress. If a person is not chaste, they will look in many places just as a matter of frivolous proclivity. They think I got many options, I got many things to read. One time we're doing Harinam in Rishikesh, in the Mecca of the yogis, and you were there. And in front of one of big famous ashram, we met some yoga students. And they were kind of complaining, why are you always chanting Hare Krishna? It's not just about Krishna, you know? Like, there are many options. There are other things you can sing and chant, and there are other things you can do. So why are you so adamant on this Krishna business? And I was happily noticing that they said there is not only Krishna. So they were chanting Hare Krishna because they saw that the devotees were chanting Hare Krishna. Because actually all there is Krishna. Krishna is in every atom and is also in between the atoms. In fact, there's nothing but Krishna in his different energies and manifestations. So, it's something very important for us because as time goes on in Kali Yuga, there is the tendency to digress. There's a tendency to deviate. There's a tendency to go off on the scenic route. And there's many exits on the scenic route. And some of them look very enticing. We've heard about, exits to Radhakund or exits to different philosophies and ideologies. Or sometimes one may think, if I go to this person, I will get some esoteric knowledge that is higher than what I have received here from Srila Prabhupada. And many are advertising. There's many signs on the highway, even on the Royal Road of Bhakti. There's many big hoardings, billboards, who say, free this, free that, free bhakti, free prema. And people are with cupcakes. And people are going for it, lock, stock, and barrel. They're jumping in, and they're happy to upgrade at any given moment, ready to take on new initiations or further initiations, getting new names and new titles and accolades. Yet here we see how Parikshit was simply chaste and focused on his mission of searching out Krishna and satisfying and pleasing Krishna through pure devotional service. So we may say, okay, I'm a loyal card-carrying member of the institution, and I'm not engaging in any proclivities, but how chaste and how loyal is my mind? Have you ever explored your options? Your plan B, plan C, plan D? The backup plan? If all else fails, I may just have a few other options in mind. And that can be of many varieties, or it can just be a slight haziness. If something is a little out of shape, out of focus, these old cameras that were not automatic zoom, but you had to actually get it right. So just haziness, just a little foggy. So when I meet people on the street, I ask them, are you everywhere or are you here? And they think it's like one of the mystical, sayings. So they say, I'm everywhere. I say, that's exactly your problem. Because happiness is only here, right now, in this moment. The past is gone. The future hasn't come. All you have is one moment. And that moment is Krishna. If you actually pay attention to the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Did you pick up on this when Prabhupada said the whole Vedic adventure is to draw one's attention entirely onto the lotus feet of Krishna? A new one, yeah. The Vedic adventure. People are ready to go for adventures. And even though right now we cannot travel so much globally, although it is slightly opening up. Yes. But the manoratena satadavato bahi, the chariot of the mind, is always ready to take us to many places and to engage in many types of activities. But as it is instructed by Krishna himself in the Bhagavad Gita, that we should focus on the essence. And Prabhupada quotes, Sarvasya cha hamridi sanivishta matak smritir jnanam apohanam cha vedaisha sarvaira hameva vedya vedanta krit vedavid eva cha ham. That Krishna is the author, the knower, and the goal of the Vedas. But it is also He who grants knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. And so, to focus exclusively on Krishna is seemingly a austerity, because the living entity has acquired so many different habits and tastes and interests in their journey through the world of names. So here, two topics are given, having the chance to be born in a family of great devotees, which is the case in Maharaj Parikshit and in some of you, probably. And that is a very fortunate situation, because then from birth one will be reminded of Krishna, and one will have that natural attraction, that natural adhikar to focus on Krishna and engage in Krishna's service. One time I was distributing books in Udupi in front of Krishna Mat, and I met a Pandit who had big Sika, big Tilak, big Brahman thread, and a lot of big books. And he was surrounded by disciples, and he walked around the square, and I stopped him and gave him a small book of Prabhupada, and he looked at me, and he said, "What is your qualification?" And I was a little startled, because what does that mean? It can mean, what is your gotra, what is your family, what is your academic background, what's your caste, or who do you think you are, So when you don't know what to do, and you have very little time to do it, then what do? Any wild suggestions?
Ask him the same question.
No, usually the mind goes blank. So what do you do when the mind goes blank? You chant Hare Krishna, right? You take shelter of Krishna. He's the one who gives knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. So when everything's gone, the only thing you have to remember is Krishna. And then what's really important, He will let you know. He will remind you of that. So I just came into my mind and I said, Gopi Bharta Parakamalayor Dāsa Dāsa Anudāsa. And he had a big smile on his face, and he took out 10 rupee and he ceremoniously handed it to me. And he said, "Good boy, carry on your great work." And he walked off with his stack of books and a little small book of Prabhupada on top, with his entourage of disciples who were somewhat appeased, but not too much. They still thought it was an affront to their greatness. So, we may not know nothing, but if we chant Hare Krishna, Krishna will let us know what we have to know in that situation. And we may know a lot, and in a moment where it counts, it all just reduces to ashes and dust. And we have experienced that. Did you ever go to an exam and you knew something, but you just forgot it at the right opportune moment? It can happen to anybody. So Krishna is the one who gives knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. So what is our qualification? Srila Prabhupada said that you have no qualification, but I have created your qualification, your good fortune. And that is the second point, to get the mercy of the spiritual master. Yasya prasadat bhagavat prasado, yasya prasadan nakati kutopi. That when we have the mercy of Guru, everything becomes possible. And if we do not have the mercy of Guru, then even the things that are easy, they become impossible. So, there's a beautiful verse in the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, Atapi te deva pajambuja dvaya prasada leshanu grihita evahi janasya tattvam bhagavan mahimnyo nachanya ekopi chiran vichinvan, which explains, this Brahma speaking, and he's saying that unless one has achieved a lesha, which is a fraction, a slithering a little inkling of mercy from a pure devotee, it's not possible to get your mercy or your darshan. So, how do we achieve that? Janasya tattvam bhagavan mahimno. They know the truth about Krishna's nature, about Krishna's pastimes, about Krishna's activities. So, that is achieved by following strictly the easy path, following in Guru Parampara. Not to concoct, not to innovate as far as Siddhanta goes. That does not mean that everything has to stay the same in the matter of application, but the matter of principle cannot be changed. But the detail of presentation always has to be adjusted to time, place, circumstance, according to the audience that one is facing. So, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is also this beautiful verse, Erupe Brahmanda Brahmite Bhagyavan Kona Bhagavan Brahmanda Brahmite Kona Bhagyavan Ajiv Guru Krishna Prasade Bhaya Bhakti Lata Beach. That after wandering through all the 8,400,000 species of life, finally we have achieved this human form of life. And it is quite rare. Out of the human species, very few are civilized. There's a lot of uncivilized human species also, which I'm sure you have practical experience here in New York, because this is like, everyone's here, and so it's a good opportunity to experience the different life forms, the different species that are out there. And so, when one has achieved the human form of life, then, by the mercy of Krishna, one will actually meet a bona fide spiritual master. And that bona fide spiritual master, his sole business is to connect the living entity with Krishna. And that means to engage him in the path of devotional service. So, I'd like to go a little bit deeper in the topic of chastity. There's the beautiful story when Jagadananda Pandit was going to Vrindavan, and he was hosted by no one else but Sanatana Goswami. And they were residing in very humble abode, and Sanatana Goswami, he was cooking, he was going for Madhukari, begging alms, and then cooking, and taking care of Jagadananda Pandit, who was his guest in his humble dwelling. So one day, Jagadananda Pandit came into the dwelling, and he saw Sanatana, and he was engaged in the process of cooking, and Sanatana was wearing a red cloth wrapped around his head. And so immediately, while seeing this cloth, he guessed that he must have gotten this from Lord Chaitanya. So he asked, just as a matter of inquiry to know the pastime, when he got that cloth from Lord Chaitanya. So where did you get that cloth from? And Sanatana Goswami said, I got it from, what was it, Mukunda Saraswati or? Mukunda Saraswati, thank you. Some sannyasi. And Jagadananda became furious. And he picked up a pot and he ran to strike Sanatana on the head with that pot. And Sanatana, naturally understanding the loving affection of Jagadananda, he appeased him, he cooled him down, and he decided to discard that cloth, and he gave it to a stranger. But he could appreciate the love, the devotion, and the sincerity of Jagadananda, who could not tolerate that one of the direct, intimate disciples and associates of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was wearing a piece of clothing that was given by someone else, that was just not acceptable for him. In a similar way, one time Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not want to see Mukunda. And the reason he gave is that Mukunda is very liberal. He goes, sometimes he comes and listens Harikatha here, then he goes and he listens from Mayavadis, then he goes and sees dramas. And he's in many places, hearing many things. So he said, I don't want to see him, ever. And Mukunda was very heartbroken, he was very aggrieved. And he asked, so when will my Lord see me again? And Mahaprabhu said, what was it, 1,000,000 lifetimes? A long time. And Mukunda was dancing in ecstasy. I will see, I will see, I will see, I will get the mercy. And Mahaprabhu said, okay, bring him back. But he made his point. He made his point for us, because the Lord is teaching through his devotees that we should not be very anxious to hear from all these kathakars and all these different wallas who've got some new type of a mix that they can, peddle on the marketplace, so to speak. So, and yes, being chaste sometimes may be a little bit an austerity, because it means that I will desist from certain activities. Whereas if a person has a different nature, the opposite nature of chaste is like a prostitute who is constantly in the business of getting people hooked. That's what I called hookers. So she might be embracing somebody, but as she's embracing someone, she's seeing someone else walking down the road, and she's thinking, that fellow must have more money than the guy I have right now. And in her mind, she's dreaming about yet somebody else. The ideal prince who will come to rescue me. So being chaste means we're not entertaining options or other type of thoughts, but we're dedicating pranayar artayar diyavacha, our entire existence, on satisfying Guru and Krishna. Harinam Sankirtan is the safest position in the universe, because it saves us from having to wander every day. What am I going to do? Where am I going to go? What I'm going to wear? And which song I'm going to sing? Because, as you might have remembered, not so long ago when we were young and meeting friends, what was the main question? So what are we going to go? What are we going to do? And what are we going to eat? And all these endless questions that are totally useless, totally pointless, because it's just a waste of time. If you have Krishna consciousness and if you have taste for Harinam Sankirtan, you are in the safest position in the universe. So New York City, being the most important city on this planet, according to Srila Prabhupada, is the place where Harinam Sankirtan should be reverberating from every street corner, from every square, from every house and alley. Yesterday we were in Columbus Circle, and I went up to one old lady who was in a wheelchair. She must have been almost 80 years old. She had a caretaker with her. But she looked very posh, and she took the book, she gave me a donation, and then at the end she said something very beautiful. She said, thanks for coming and speaking to me. Because you could see, she was a very beautiful girl, just like a few decades ago. And now she's in this wheelchair. And people don't even notice that she exists. Because once you pass a certain age, I don't know what the threshold is here, but once you pass your prime, which means, your prime is usually 16 to 18. You can maybe drag it for a couple of more years. But once you're 35, it's definitely going way downhill. And then once you pass 50, people don't really notice that you exist anymore. And after 70, it's more like you're something to be avoided, You're just trouble. So she just appreciated, thanks for talking to me. She was genuinely appreciative. And another young man who was a caregiver with an old person, and they're both from Israel, but living in New York City. And the caregiver brought the old man to the Harinam just to have him experience the chanting. And then at the end, he opened his zipper and showed me his neck piece. And he said, you know, I'm a devotee. But don't tell this guy here, you know. And so I gave the old man a book, and he ceremoniously, religiously donated his $1 to the good cause. And off they went. But I saw how, simply because the devotee is taking that little extra trouble and effort to go out of their way, to go all the way to Columbus Circle, to chant Hare Krishna, so many living entities got benefited, and they got the opportunity. As Srila Prabhupada was going the extra mile, in fact, a few extra 1,000 miles, to come here to New York, should we also not be shy to go the extra mile, to extend Srila Prabhupada's message and mercy in the form of his books, the Holy Name and Prasad, to everybody? I was in Santa Cruz, California a few days ago, and while walking back from the farmer's market, I met a young man and his daughter, and we just started chatting, just started talking, and I told him where I'm from, and he said, oh, I was in Switzerland. I asked which town, and he said a certain name of a town, and I said, oh, that's my hometown, that's where I'm from. Well, what were you doing there? He said, I work for a bank as a translator. I said, which bank? He said the name. I said, I know the place. It's the bank of my parents. I mean, they don't own it, but they were banking there. And then I knew exactly where he worked and what he was doing. So anyway, we chatted, and as we reached his car, I gave him a book. He gave me a donation and some fruit. And before leaving, he said something very beautiful. He said, aren't you a... And I said, yeah, I'm a Hare Krishna. You know, when people say, aren't you a... Then the answer is yes, I'm a Hare Krishna. Right? And then he said, you know, when I was in Switzerland, I went to a music festival. And there's one of these camping festivals where it goes for a whole weekend and you camp out with friends with a tent. And one time he came back and the tent was gone and his clothes were gone and his money was gone and his ID, everything was gone. He attained instant sannyas, like in one moment. And his good friends were also gone with all his stuff. So he said, I went to the Hare Krishna camp and they gave me a sleeping bag, they gave me a place to stay, they gave me food, and they took care of me. So for life, he knows. These are my people. These are good people. Huh? I met another couple yesterday from Chile who had been to Mayapur because of a good fortune of having some Chilean devotee friends who invited him. And for 10 days they stayed there. And I asked them, how was the khichdi? And their faces just started beaming, you know. They were just like, yeah. And one of the three remembered as a student eating prasadam, because around the University of Santiago there's about 12 devotee restaurants. And they're all little hole in the walls. Actually, not even hole in the walls. They just open the window of a ground floor apartment and sell little burgers and enchiladas and sweet balls right out of the window for like $1 a piece. And the students line up there around noontime and get their lunch. So it's very famous. And they were appreciating. So how to get the mercy of the spiritual master? We have to dedicate ourselves to his mission. Last Kartik in Govardhan, I was walking with Burijan Prabhu from Govardhan Ashram to the little dwelling that he has just behind. And he said, Navīna, there's something that I wanted to tell you for the last 2 years. Now, if somebody tells you that, then you better start paying attention. Have you ever kept a thought in your head for 2 years without telling anybody? I know Ram can do that, but a lot of people can't, because you have to have patience and you have to have a deep mind, or bear a lot of grudges. That's another option. And so he said, right now is the most important time in your life, because you're investing in your foundation, you're investing in yourself. So use this time wisely. Don't be disturbed. And then he gave a list of the few innuendos that he knew that could aggravate my life. And then he said, you should always ask yourself 3 questions. Question number 1, who am I? Which is question of identity. And he answered it. I'm a servant of Krishna. Question number 2, who do I want to please? Who occupies the sacred space of your heart? Is Prabhupada there? Is your Guru there? Is Radha Krishna there? Who is your Ishtadev? Who do you want to please? And number 3, what is your contribution to this ISKCON movement? What is your legacy? What is it that you would like to contribute to this Hare Krishna movement? So I thought those were pretty succinct questions that he asked. And I wanted to add a 4th, which was, what am I ready to sacrifice in order to achieve these 3? Or to achieve my contribution? What am I ready to give? What am I ready to do in order to actually achieve that fraction of a mercy of the spiritual master? So, here in the purport, Prabhupada makes a few more points that I would like to touch upon. He's saying that, he's quoting Akama sarva kamo va moksha kamo daradi tivirena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param, that whether you're full of material desires, you have no material desire, or you desire liberation, just serve Krishna and everything will come out just fine. So, Maharaj Parikshit, being born in a great family, being fortunate to have this great heritage, you could say he had it made. He was the undisputed leader of the world. No elections, no discussions, no revolutions, no debates. Just he's the man for life. But then somehow by a freak accident of chance, what seemed to be just like a small little glitch, a small little mishap, a slip-up, he got cursed to die within 7 days. But Prabhupada is speaking about it here like it's the greatest fortune and the greatest opportunity. He says, a greatly fortunate person, by the mercy of the spiritual master, achieves the mercy of Krishna. And he says, consequently, Krishna gave the king a further chance for development devotional service by introducing him to Shukadeva Goswami, a stalwart devotee of the Lord, with perfect knowledge of self-realization. So Prabhupada puts it like, this is a blessing, this is a great fortune, this is a very wonderful privilege that's being bestowed upon the king. Whoever thought like that? Who just got, his medical examination and it says, hey, you know what? Time is up soon, In the entire of Vidura Niti, Vidura's instructions, there is one very memorable, and it's all memorable, but this is very outstanding. To me, it's like the Mahavakya of Vidura. Would you like to know what is his Mahavakya? Highly regard loss, which brings great gain. If you forget everything about today's class, try to remember that one. Highly regard loss, which brings great gain. You can get a tattoo. Have you ever thought one situation was terrible, was the worst thing that could ever happen, is completely destroying me, it's crushing? And just a few years or decades later, you looked back and you concluded, this was the best thing that could have happened in my life. Has this ever happened to you? Or is it just me? Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Krishna is not a bar. He's a dancer, right? So he's the magician. He's got all the moves. So that means if you want to have drama, you got to have some suspense. There's got to be some excitement. There has to be some bad guys. There has to be some near-death experience. There has to be some extremes of emotions. Otherwise, how would you bring out the drama? Huh? Like in the cartoons formerly, you had, the cat or whatever it is runs off the cliff and then almost falls down, but then turns around and runs back, mysteriously gets saved. Huh? So in a similar way, we also ran off the cliff and somehow Krishna kept us going. Somehow Krishna kept us going. Even though we literally ran off the cliff in so many different ways and in so many different situations, but somehow Krishna kept us going. So as a matter of gratitude, as a matter of, gratitude, that's the word. Let us dedicate ourselves to this Harinam Sankirtan mission to invoke the blessing and the mercy of the Acharyas. Because an ungrateful person, the only benefit of being ungrateful is that, which explains a short story, if you want to know what the benefit is of being ungrateful. Once Shankaracharya, he walked on the road, and he saw one Chandala, a dog eater, walk in front of him. And he passed, and Shankaracharya was very observant because he's a very smart person, he's very analytical. And he got curious, so he stopped him and he asked, he said, "My dear sir, I got a question to ask." So that man, he was walking, and he was holding a skull, and it had dog meat in it. And at the same time, he had a pitcher, and he was putting Ganges water all over the road. And he said, "To me, this seems a little contradictory, In one side, it looks like your habits are not, they leave to be desired. On the other hand, you're throwing Ganges water, so what is this?" So the man said, "My dear sir, it's obvious. My lifestyle is compromised. But I'm throwing Ganges water because just in case a akritagya, a ungrateful person has walked on the path before me, I want to purify my path. Because there's nothing as treacherous and as degrading as the association with an ungrateful person." Huh? Even Rakshasas will not eat ungrateful people, which some might say it could be a very good thing. But there are some Rakshasas who actually have some class, So they say, won't touch those kinds. I'm sure there are other types who are not so discerning, so discriminative. But there are stories of some Rakshasas who do make distinctions. So if we are not appreciative of the gifts that we have been given, and we are not training our minds to be chaste, but we let them wander in many places, in many activities, then we'll be considered as asati or unchaste. So Parikshit was being glorified as being chaste to Krishna, to the teachings of his spiritual master, Shukadeva Goswami, and to the process of devotional service. So let us follow in his footsteps by wholeheartedly embracing this greatest opportunity, Harinam Sankirtan. Kalerdhosa nidhe rajanasti eko mahadgunat kirtana deva krishnasya mukta sangha param braje. Ocean of faults, one good quality. Chanting Hare Krishna can give you the highest destination. So Srila Prabhupada oftentimes mentioned that you have no qualification. I made your qualification, and you're too fallen to go to the spiritual world, but that he's got a key to the back door. He got the entry. So let us line up with Srila Prabhupada and his mission, and in this way we can also invoke a fraction of his mercy. Hare Krishna. we got some time for comments. Maharaj first and Ram Roy. Ram Roy, ready? Please.
Prabhupada stressed that at least you're always grateful. Then you'll be allowed to remain in that level. And there's one place also, I think in the seventh canto, in the area where unless one is interested in preaching constantly to the fallen, perhaps in the same fallen conditioned souls, to surpass the modes of material nature is practically impossible. And for the diligent and persistent preacher, such an advanced devotee will never fall down because Krishna will give him special protection. And preaching is perhaps the most sharpening your knife to make you like to the millimeter and epicenter correctly chased, because there's no allowance for any off if you're actually going to be a bona fide representative of the Parampara.
Thank
New
you.
York City is a good testing stone.
Yeah. Yeah, so we invite, I like to extend the invitation that Ram Roy Prabhu already made in his interview with Deva Madhava Prabhu. We like to invite everybody to come down to New York City and join the Harinam Sankirtan. Right? Is that still true?
Hansa Rupa Prabhu in his one of the first speeches to the congregation after November 2018, when the court litigation was decided in our favor, we got the keys to enter the building, that we want to make New York ISKCON as much a popular and also desired destination for devotees to visit as Vrindavan and Mayur.
Haribo.
A lot of work to get to that.
It's good to have a goal, yeah. Thank you for that. And for me, it's I'm very fortunate to be here. It's very refreshing. The Association Radha Govinda and their servants, and it's actually the best place for Harinam Sankirtan and Bhukti Sibhushan because of so many factors that we have mentioned. But people are very receptive. They're also suffering intensely due to the special mercy of the place. And so it is a win-win situation. Any other points? Yes.
You're talking about appreciation. That's something that people always ask my Guru Maharaj, like how he keeps going on in the face of so much difficulty with his physical health, with so many catastrophe problems happening externally, and he always says that if you are like, if you think, or like, you know, how do you have the will to serve your spiritual master so much? So he says, if you just think about all the things you've gotten from your spiritual master and you're grateful for that, that's what his meditation always is, and that's what gives him the strength to always do that.
Thank you.
Because he can never repay Prabhupada for what Prabhupada's given, so therefore he can unlimitedly push on.
Go all in. Thank you. Yes, Krishna Kripa and then Rama.
So, Nīrada just reminded me that sometimes I like to do 3 hours of Harinam every day, and I go out even though I can't find anybody to go out with me. Just sometimes I do that for a long time. Sometimes people aren't very receptive, and that's just really austere, But then I think about how Prabhupada, in his late 60s, got on that boat, for 38 days and had 2 heart attacks, and then my little austerity seems very small. And the other thing is that in my personal, I want to thank you for all the nice points you made in the class and your realizations from the book distribution. And in my personal reading, I ran into something that relates to this verse in your talk on it. I just wanted to read that. It's from the Nectar of Devotion regarding like the point that's made here, how he was fortunate by being born in a devotee family and having devotee association. This relishing of transcendental mellow in discharging devotional service cannot be experienced by all classes of men, because this sweet, loving mood is developed only from one's previous life's activities or by the association of unalloyed devotees. As explained above, association with pure devotees is the beginning of faith in devotional service. Only by developing such faith in the association of a pure devotee, or by having in one's previous life executed devotional activities, can one actually relish the mellow of devotional service. In other words, this transcendental bliss is not to be enjoyed by any common man unless he is so extraordinarily fortunate as to be in the association with devotees, or to be continuing his previous birth's devotional activities.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Ramroy Prabhu?
Lord Chaitanya says, Shreya Karaiva Chandrika Vitarana. So the difference between Shreyas, long-term benefit, and Preyas, which means immediately perceivable results. So I was thinking you could read the members of the Panchatattva caused the rains and the flood of love of Godhead to descend. The Mahaharinam Sankirtan is like a deluge, a downpour of water. And the results of that rainfall, I mean, it's logical, but how many people are really equating so many things about their life to the fall of water from the sky? In that, sometimes that we don't, we're chanting Hare Krishna, as Krishna Kripa just expressed, and, many times people just walking by oblivious or even unfavorable, but the Yagna Purush, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is being meticulously pleased, and it's the only way, actually, to really please Lord Chaitanya. Even the deity worship, unless accompanied by Nam Sankirtan, Prabhupada said, is not complete. So, the holy name is the greatest dispensation, the greatest gift that's being given freely by Lord Chaitanya. He's so kind. Take shelter of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. Be happy. Thank you very much. But it's at the same time, because it is Radha and Krishna, Radha Govinda, in the form of their holy names, their worship is most confidential, sacred, and guarded. You can't enter the mystery cheaply. So, this Nam Shraddha is something that has to be really worked for with a lot of diligence and persistence over one's lifetime to actually understand what is really happening with the chanting of the holy name. Just like Krishnadas Babaji's memoir being a Prabhupada sannyas initiation, when such a personality as Bhakti Pramukeshwar Maharaj, very advanced disciple of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, Prabhupada's dear godbrother, urging the spiritual master, speaking through this godbrother, you must take sannyas. The different ceremonies and perfunctory activities, and Krishnadas Babaji is making loud kirtan, and then Prabhupada from behind, making sure that nobody looks at him. When I saw this, I realized that he would be the one to fulfill the prediction to spread the holy name all over the world, because his faith in the holy name. I have no devotion, but I have strong faith in the holy name. You've designated me as Bhaktivedanta. So, anyway, the essence of what I'm trying to say is that we have to be very much careful, especially the leadership, those who are leading, inspiring, or have some official position, the seniority in this movement, they must have very strong faith in the Harinam Sankirtan movement and distribute that down the line.
Thank you.
This is how we're going to transform the planet. We'll make everything much more easy to distribute books, more easy to institute what we've yet today. It seems like a Chinese jigsaw puzzle for an ashram. Now we're going to change the Western culture to Vedic culture.
Thank you. Yeah, actually, it's the easiest place, wherever Harinam Sankirtan is happening, it's the easiest place to distribute books. Because people are just ready, And many have heard the mantra, and they're just kind of, they won't come forward because they're too self-conscious. But they're actually happy if somebody comes and talks to them, because they're already being prepared. Otherwise, we get lost in the whole Vedic adventure. We get lost somewhere along the way. Okay, last point, and we close. Don't want to hold back the Sankirtan army, otherwise get all the get the tanks rolling.
I'm trying to point out Ram's, the way he explained this to leaders of the society. They're not giving so much importance to the holiness. Actually, it is so. So, in 1989, Padayatra America began from Berkeley to Tijuana. So it took us 1 month to walk 1,000 miles. And when we went to the temple, one of the top leaders of the society, I don't like to be offensive, but he said we are a bunch of bombs. Because we don't have anything else, we are simply chanting and then we are walking. So this is how they interpreted. This is how they expressed. So I was really shocked when I heard, instead of appreciation, we got this kind of joy.
Well, that is to be expected. Haridas Thakur and Lord Nityananda, some people they were glorifying and throwing flowers and food and money, and other people, they were yelling and screaming, and others were chasing them. So, welcome to the club. This is the kind of company we've signed up for. So if you're not getting anybody to object and to criticize, then that means you're just asleep. You're not doing anything. Then why would people take objection? But if you're actually doing something, somebody will object, naturally. That's just the way of the world. But we have to know what is our mission, what is our purpose, what do we have to do. And then even if somebody says something critical or negative, I don't know the context in which he said that, but we can always extract the essence and try to apply it, We can always improve our presentation. There's always a little grain of truth in whatever gets, thrown our way. So be ready to pick up that little grain of truth and not get disturbed by, just like Vidura. He could have screamed foul play, but he saw the internal and external energy of the Lord working simultaneously, extricating him from this turmoil in this political situation. And he saw it as a blessing. And he went and did Harinam Sankirtan. He hit the road. For how long? 20 years. He was gone. And he only came back for one speech. And then he was gone again. So that was, that's the mood, that's the spirit that we have to follow. And Krishna was crying tears before leaving the world, remembering Vidura. And he's there in the Bhagavatam. Krishna was resting on his lap. Krishna was eating the banana peel. Krishna was, considering him his dearest devotee. So that is the examples that we have from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. And we should not get discouraged in any way. In fact, it is explained that when you get some opposition, you should see this actually as an encouragement, that this is actually something good. It's meant to be like that. As Bhaktivinoda Thakur was saying, that the difficulties that arise in the performance of my devotional service, they're my ecstasy. That doesn't mean we should artificially create more difficulties by our ignorance or by our passionate behavior, but we should try to extract the lessons. And sometimes maybe the aesthetical presentation does also make a difference, the way how we present ourselves. Like we see when we have Harinam, when it is presentable and there's a nice Harinam going on, people just can't just walk by, they get drawn. They just have to stay there and pay attention. So there is always something to learn from every story, like here. So thank you for your kind attention, hospitality, and especially for being who you are and doing what you do, keeping the yagya going in this most important city of New York. The world is watching. Not that we could care, but we know Krishna cares. So we try to always be mindful that where is Krishna? And what is Krishna's reciprocation in this? What is his message, and how would he react when he sees my action, my attempts at devotional service? So this is Maharaj Parikshit's mood, and this is the mood we can imbibe. Thank you for your kind attention. Grantaraj Śhrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki, Śrīla Prabhupada ki, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki, Sri Sri Radha Govinda Deva ki, Nitai Gaur Pramanandi, Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.